Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon, and today we're looking at the T-34-1 starring Garbad. The T-34-1 is a Tier 7 Chinese medium tank characterized by okay mobility, a mediocre gun, and a decent turret with very good camo. If it sounds like I'm hesitant to give the T-34-1 a good review, it's just because the tank is somewhat confusing. The gun had 175 base penetration, is the best penetration on a medium in tier. It's just that the aim time is awful, the bloom time is terrible, the accuracy is just atrocious at times. But yet, that's a lot of penetration for a medium at tier 7, and the alpha at 250 is not bad at all. When it connects, the firepower is very effective. The turret is very strong, the hull is very weak, but the tank does have enough gun depression to hull down quite effectively. The camouflage on the tank is very good, and since I have a Type 59, I was able to stick a high-powered Chinese crew into the tank, which helped immensely, of course. I think that while the tank has some negatives to it, the positives help counterbalance the negatives. For example, yeah, it has a long aim time, but it also has very good camo, so you can spend your time aiming while you're invisible. The accuracy and derpiness of the gun is offset by the high penetration. Maybe you didn't hit the part of the enemy tank you were aiming for, but with the higher penetration the round probably goes through anyway. The hull armor might not be that strong, but the turret armor is rock solid, and any hull down position is going to give you a decent shot at survival. Taking a look at the game a little more closely, the opening stages have somewhat settled down. Both sides know where the other side has kind of set up shop, and right now each side is just kind of feeling the other side out as they maneuver. Though it may not look like it to some, Garbad is actually doing some scouting here. He doesn't want to move up too terribly far and overexpose himself, but when he sees an enemy, he shoots it. He knows that the Panther is moving off into the distance. His gun kind of fails him on the last two shots, but he's just slowly going to move his way forward, bush to bush. As soon as he gets spotted, he's going to move back to cover. But since he's not spotting anyone on the 8 line on this side of the buildings, he's moving a bit forward. And since the Panther went back to the K line, he feels comfortable enough moving to this bush. Sometimes this bush will let you spot artillery that is a little too far forward, or people that are still camping base. However, most of the enemy team has been spotted by now, and they're really not hanging around their flag, and they're not really hanging around in town. Garbad really can't flank the guys in town. You don't want to brawl in this tank, especially since he is in a Tier 8 battle and knows that there's an IS-3 in town. Meanwhile, the northwest corner is getting overrun, and due to the minimap action earlier, there are several tanks over there. There they go, lit up. The alpha of the tank at 250 is definitely above average, and so even though the gun is a little bit derpy at times, that alpha will allow you to put a hurt on the tanks that your shots do connect with. So right now Garbad is beyond the visual range of his enemies. They're 450 meters plus, out to 500 meters, and the gun is putting in acceptable work. He's shooting mostly a PCR, that is his choice, probably because he has nothing left to spend his money on. It's at this point where his teammates are just going to fail him, and he's going to find a bush, hopefully to both spot them and to shoot them and prevent a cap. If you look at the minimap, the only hope is that his team does manage to win city and somehow move to cap and have Garbad hold the enemy off for an acceptable amount of time. Ideally, his team would recognize that they need to defend cap rather than sit in city staring at the opponent, but we're being realistic here and saying, hey, Garbad's just going to have to pick up the slack on this one. So he sees a Super Pershing in the distance. He's able to not only spot them, but shoot unseen. At 325 meters, this is a strong testament to the strength of the inherent camo of the tank. The biggest threat to him at this point is probably the Super Pershing. The T-34 is completely blind and will not be able to spot him. He switches targets to take out the IS. It's always useful taking a gun off the field, no matter what anyone else says, and continues to put work on the T-34 since the Super Pershing is hiding behind a rock. And so far, that faint hope comes through. His team did manage to win city, meaning that if he just holds these tanks off a little bit longer, there will be reinforcements arriving. Garbad correctly takes time out to eliminate a Churchill on its way to cap. The Super Pershing will fall shortly here, sealing the game. This game was definitely won by the strong camo of the T-34-1, hitting all of the tanks while they made their way to the cap. And in the early game, that high alpha allowed him to peekaboo profitably with the enemies such as the IS-3 and Panther. Overall, I really enjoy the tank and suggest you check it out. Hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.